Hey, how's everyone doing? Sorry for a little bit of the hiatus, but welcome to the Sanders Circus. My name is Craig,
I'm Jenny.
and this is episode number 5. We're so extremely excited to see you guys and to spend some quality time with you. Of course, anytime I give some hand signals, for some reason, camera here continues to act up. Technology, fun stuff. There it goes. Now it's on Jenny. So it was on me. Now it's on Jenny. Let's see if we can get it turned around here. Okay. Hey, there we go. Nothing like wasting 40 seconds to try to figure it out a little bit. But episode number 5, we're excited to spend some quality time with you guys here this evening, and I hope that you've had a great time with your family over Thanksgiving and spending some quality time with them. I know that we had a fantastic time doing that. Also, kind of running around just a little bit. Jenny, of course, people can watch these episodes anytime, so it might not be Thanksgiving when they decide to watch this, but why don't you just give them a little bit of a rundown of like where we go and what our Thanksgiving Thursday looks like when we first hop in the car.
Our holidays have always been crazy from the get go. We just said family's important to us, so we'll do whatever we need to do to be there on holidays with our family. So basically, we just always ran around and did whatever needed to be done or go wherever. Now that we have kids, we still do it. It's just pack lunches, snacks, pajamas. We just get it all. And so we do my family first on Thanksgiving for lunch, and then we go down to Gallipolis for Craig's family on his dad's side for dinner time.
Yeah, so it is a little bit different. I know, of course, before we had the kiddos, we had kind of made that decision of just really making sure that we've talked about it in previous episodes, but that we've really made a conscious effort to be around for our families. And it is a little crazier. We've made multiple comments about it is a little crazier when we get in the car with the 3 kiddos and try to get all the things that they need. And
We just pray
uh,
they take a nap on
yes,
the next
yes.
place that we need to go.
Yes, absolutely. So, we kinda make that Chillicothe run, and once we leave there after a couple hours,
Yeah.
basically, we wait until the kids are everybody's done with the kids, including us, and, so we pack them in the car and, start that drive to Gallipolis a little bit. In years past has been, a little bit it's a lot different this year. We live in Circleville now, and so, it was a little bit different to, kinda pack up in the morning, go to Chillicothe first, and then make that drive to Gallipolis. And then at the end of it, instead of being 2 minutes away from our house or something along those lines, we got back in the car and made that drive back up a little bit. So when you talk about making sure we have pajamas and different things along those, clearly got to make sure that we
Yeah.
have those. And the kids did pretty well for the very first time of kind of leaving the house and having a new kind of a new route to go. So that's been pretty cool for us. But so if you guys are out and about and you have a Thanksgiving story, or even as we're coming into the Christmas season here, you have a funny family story, or even you want to talk to us a little bit about what your route is during those times, we'd love to hear from you guys. So make sure that you guys reach out and share some of those things with us. We'd love to even share some of those stories maybe on here if it's funny enough to make the cut here on the Sanders Circus. But yeah, we've had some fantastic times from that perspective too. But we wanted to jump right in here, catch back up on the tail end of episode 4. If you guys have not listened to our first 4 episodes, I would love, love, love for you guys to do that. You can go back and listen to episode 1, where you begin to hear how our love started to blossom and to grow. Definitely sick and I mean gross. Nobody wants to hear that kind of stuff. But listen to those college lovey-dovey stories, and then of course catch back up with us from our move from Chillicothe to Adams County, and then most recently where we're at here in episode 4. Or in episode 4, we talked about leaving Adams County and going to moving to Gallia County, which is where I'm from. And our goal there was ultimately we thought we were smart enough and that we had all of our ducks in a row to plant a church there. But luckily for us, when we went there, we were able to run in to a church family and fellowship of faith that we're already about 5 years in and doing some fantastic stuff. And so here in episode 5, you're going to hear a little bit about that. You're going to hear about that first year that we were there, touch on that first year that we were in Gallipolis in 2008 and 2009. And then as we ended in episode 4, we talked about the opportunity for me to finally give away my keys from AutoZone and my Ford Ranger and become a staff member at Fellowship of Faith at the beginning of 2010. And so for us, when we've talked about this journey and this circus ride that we've been on, at every step, we have been able to secure some things that sometimes we don't think about, which clearly you should when you move. But we've been able to secure some jobs when we needed it, some cash flow when we needed it, and ultimately just a place to stay when we needed it too. And so when I started in 2010 at Fellowship of Faith, one of the neat things about it was that we were doing, I was over children's ministry from age 0 through student ministries, and even I kind of talked about some young adult things. So there was a lot of opportunity for us to be a little bit of everywhere. And at that point, we didn't have kids. So that's what we did. We jumped 2 feet in and we were literally at everything that the church was doing. And we were part of literally all of those things. And so we got to see some cool baptisms. We got to see a lot of children's ministry. We got to hang out with a lot of cool teens. We got to do some young adult pieces and some old adult pieces as we are in our 40s now, spending some quality time with those 40 and over folks, yeah, even too, and building good relationships with them. So, Jenny, from those early years, what was maybe something like in that, whenever I had the opportunity to hop in to staff at Fellowship of Faith, maybe were you able to like have a sigh of relief maybe, or were you excited about it, or were you nervous about it? I mean, what did you think of kind of that journey from 2008 when we, kind of packed up everything and headed to Gallia County to 2010, and uh, me, I guess, finding a stable position inside the church, and then you doing a lot of fun things in the daycare scene too. What were some of those things that you can kind of remember right off from that beginning
I
time?
mean, of course, it was nice for us to find like a steady job.
Yawning already. As you can tell, we do this podcast after the kids go to bed. Luckily, they did go to bed a little soon, but Jenny is always up for a nap and always ready to go to bed pretty early. So I've got her up late tonight, working on episode 5. So, like you were saying,
Yeah, so it was nice for us to find kind of steady jobs, with him with the church. I worked at a daycare, just, having something to provide for us. I mean, God always provides for us, but just to have that stable, position, I think was good. And then the thing that we loved about children's ministry, youth ministry, the young adult stuff was just building relationships, having them to our house, like going to things for them. That was the most fun that, we just always enjoyed doing those things no matter where we were. We were there supporting them, and it was just always a blessing to be a part of their life and still to see them now and see them, 24 years old, and, we've seen them grow up. So it's been fun.
yeah, it's been really neat. Even over the last, probably 10 plus years or so, we've really had the opportunity to do some weddings and to be at some really important pieces from some of those folks, and it's really good to reminisce and do some of those things. I know for me personally, it was a really neat opportunity for Jenny and I to really build great relationships with some of those families and some of those kiddos. I was just actually looking through some of our pictures and saw an early picture of you and Brooke Ryder, which of course she's married now, but we went to Kings Island and Brooke went to the concert with us and had a fantastic time, and would always be, that's always a memory that we won't forget, is spending some quality time with her. And then as that group continued to grow, being able to go back there for
Yeah.
multiple days and spend some quality time there, and some different things along those times. In those years, in those early years from 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, we were really able to do a bunch of stuff within the church. Of course, we continued to stay there and different things like that. But in those years that I was on staff there, I mean, we just had so much fun. I can't tell you how many football games we went to because we went to a ton of them, tons of basketball games, piano recitals, dance recitals, taking the kids to um, all haunted houses, island, tons of fun stories. Shout out to Josh Blevins and Brooke and Jennifer and all of those folks. I remember playing some kind of uh, Nintendo Wii game, I think, or PlayStation game that was like a dance off game or something along those
Rock
lines.
band. Oh,
Yeah, and
yeah.
tons of rock band. We definitely had that going. If you guys ever had that, I know that you guys are missing that because that's something that we played absolutely all the time. The rock band with the drums and the guitar,
The kids would
multiple
really like that.
guitar and microphone. Oh yeah. If there was a way for them to bring that back, that's what they should do because that game
It would be called
was,
vintage.
yes, yeah, definitely vintage. But just had fantastic times. And in the midst of that too, some friends of ours, Sean and Bethany Wall, which we've mentioned before, they decided in the midst of our time kind of transitioning to Galpolis to start their transition to be missionaries to Papua New
Yeah,
Guinea. And so here they are moving clear across the world to Papua New Guinea over by Australia. And I just remember it was hard for us to lose some of our really good friends. That at 4 years at a time, they would be over in Papua New Guinea. But also, I think one of the cool things about that was it really gave us an opportunity to introduce missions to Fellowship of
yeah,
Faith. And Pastor Greg and Pastor Jamie at the time and the entire staff were just, they were definitely supportive of them. And Sean and Bethany were the very first missionaries that Fellowship of Faith began
yeah,
to support as a church family. Being a brand new church plant and different things along those lines, like you're always trying to look
yeah,
for different ways to support your community. And Sean, being a guy from Galpolis, they were able to do that and to build that initial relationship there. And so that was a really cool thing
yeah,
too, because it really gave us an opportunity to really even get to see them on some different Sundays and do some video chat with them and Skype back in the day when Skype was just kind of launching and being a big deal, us having
yeah,
all kinds of video quality problems, but at the same time too, being able to talk to them was really cool.
yeah,
So Jenny, in those moments too, we have this real opportunity to build into young people and to families. But for us, what were maybe some things that we were going through as a husband and wife, and even that children pursuit, that opportunity to try to have kids? What were some things maybe that you had kind of maybe struggled with, or that we struggled with as husband and wife through those early moments in Galpost? Because I think we thought we went to Chillicothe and we could be, just a young crazy couple. We could
yeah,
go to Adams County and kind of do the same thing. Here we go with the camera
yeah.
again.
Stop putting your hands up.
I'll try to keep my hands down, hands down, man down. But in that moment when we got to Galpolis, I think for both of us, we probably started to think a little bit about kids. Maybe what in those that 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14 kind of time period. What were some things maybe that you were thinking about?
Well, I mean, we hadn't been together crazy long. I mean, we always wanted kids, but it wasn't like really pursuing it before then. But then going to Gout Plus, being involved with youth and kids and things like that just reminded me of what we didn't have, like, because we wanted a family, but we didn't have that. It was always Mother's Day was always hard. Father's Day was always hard. So, a couple of the youth kids knew that. And so they would always, write letters or give us extra hugs or something like that because we became like their cool parents, is what they called us, because we were there for them. And so it was hard seeing all of that and not being able to have it in your life. But I'm very thankful that we got the opportunity because then it didn't help prepare us for our crazy kids. Um,
Supposedly,
yeah,
it was
but
supposed to help
yeah,
us.
it was really good though because it gave us that love that we could love on younger kids, teens, young adults. We could take that love and do it with them instead of our own kids. So I mean, at least we had that. It was still hard, but that really did give me the opportunity to nurture and care for others. And then just for us to hang out with, people and just kind of mentor them or just be someone they could talk to or just have fun with or, if they had a rough week or whatever.
Yeah, I think for us, we poured a lot of our heart and soul into those kiddos and in those relationships because I think for us as individuals, I would say that that's probably a hands down. That was something for me that, I mean, I had good mentors and good people in my life and good family members, but like I think we just wanted to be more for those, and
Yeah.
so that's the reason it's so important for us to
Right.
go to so many football games and things like that. And I think even in those times, I know that there were many, many times where I was extremely frustrated and like what our numbers were because I mean, still to this day, when you have a youth group or your church, people will ask you, how big is your church? They don't say like, how's your relationship with Jesus or how is your relationship with your people? It's how big is your youth group? How big is your church? Different things like that. And so for Jenny and I remember just having multiple conversations with you and then also with Jamie, Sisson, who's the pastor there now, just about so many times where we were going to these events that we were traveling and like I had the opportunity to speak to the football team multiple different times and spend quality time with those guys or the basketball team or the
Yeah.
baseball team or whatever it might be. And in the midst of that, not really see the growth in our like maybe Sunday events that we were having
Yeah.
or our youth group nights or something along those lines. But when we were out and about in the community, it was amazing. It was so
Yeah.
much fun because if it was you were out to a restaurant or you were at the city park or wherever you might be,
Mhm.
kids were just flocking to us, and it was so much fun. Like to go to a prom and do the pre-prom stuff and literally be there an hour or so beforehand and literally have tons and tons of families and kids coming
Yeah.
on. They were coming to us to get the picture and to spend time with us rather than us hunt them down on those days. And so I think looking back on it clearly was a time for me, and I know for you too, where we really valued those
Yeah.
relationships. But in the moment, it was tough. In the moment, it was, hey, we're doing a lot of these things. Why aren't you showing up? And so I think looking back at those moments, I think for me, it really taught me that relationships are important and that even if people are not showing up when you want them to, they still care about you.
Yeah.
And you want to be the person that they call at 2 a.m because they trust and they believe in you. And there were times where we've gotten those calls. We've still gotten those calls, even in our 40s. Those calls are a little bit tougher to take at
Yeah.
2 a.m. But at the same time, too, like we wouldn't trade those phone calls for literally anything. And so I know that you've really talked about, us being the cool parents, and that's the one thing that I think that we kind of got that label of. Do you have like maybe a story or something that you thought was interesting when it came to some of those kind of cool parent moments even?
I mean, just showing up to events, like, their parents would be like, "Look, there's your cool parents," or something, just having fun, but, I mean, we were at everything for this group of kids and for anybody that we could be there for, so I guess that's why they called us that, but, we weren't officially their parents.
Yeah, yeah. So, it was a lot of times where we would show up to an event and, the kids, instead of paying attention to their parents, they were, clearly wanting to know what we were doing and what was going on and, taking graduation pictures with us first instead of their mom or dad or whatever it might be. And so, definitely had a lot of fun with that, but of course too, like, felt very humbled for those opportunity. And as we kinda grew into our life, and they did too, kind of the next stops, of course, we were able to do a lot of the graduation pieces and things along those lines. But then also, we went on this time period where we went kind of on this flurry of weddings and really got to spend some quality time with some of these folks of some of these young people that are now in wedding season in their life, and we've had the opportunity to stand beside of them, and I've had the opportunity to do those weddings. And I don't think that there's a better thing, a better compliment in life to when a family can come to you or a future husband and wife can come to you and ask you to be a part of the wedding. I think we value that tremendously,
Yeah.
and it really is a big deal. In those years, at 2010, 11, 12, 13, kind of in the midst of that too, I had the opportunity to start coaching at Gallia Academy High School. I had the opportunity to start coaching. I was coaching some soccer in kind of 2010, 2011. And then in the midst of that, I had the opportunity to start coaching some high school baseball. Gay Academy, Rich Corvin was the head coach, and you had Steve Sloan and Corey Luce and Tyler Eastman and Justin and Chappie and all of those guys who kind of came through there and were a part of that program. And just in the midst of that, lots and lots of long, long I'm trying to keep my hands down. I talk too much with my hands. I mean, you guys know that about me. I can't sit still. What am I supposed to be doing here? Lots of long, long evenings in that. But
Mhm.
I think too, in the midst of that coaching, here I was and when we first came through trying to think about planting a church and seeing what that growth model was. And of course, us thinking or me thinking that maybe we're ready for that. But in the midst of that, like honestly, what was nice about it was we were able to find a church family
Mhm.
that helped us be a part of a team. And then even from a coaching perspective too, it helped me become a part of a team and really see how you can lead from like multiple different positions in the chairs and that, but then also how you can build good relationships with the student athlete, but also with the coaches that are around there. And so that group became a really tight knit group of coaches. We still text back and forth a little bit even to this day. And during that, 2010, I coached Gallia County baseball all the way up until 2020, which is really crazy to kind of think about that. It kind of was a 10-year span there from Coach Corvin to Coach Justin Bailey there, and just the opportunities that we had and the many athletes that came through there. Some of those athletes who attended our church, and many of those athletes that really didn't. And in the midst of that, you being a coach's wife and being home by yourself and waiting for Coach Corvin to even let us coaches go home a little bit. And there were a couple years there that literally that I was not home as much as I was home, I guess, in those time periods. Did you ever think like, were there ever times where you thought that, like, I mean, clearly not anything of like divorce or anything along those lines, but was there anything that where it was like difficult or tough times where there was because I mean, that during baseball season, it's at least six days a week,
Oh, yeah.
if not
It
seven,
was
kind of thing. So
yeah.
were times where you were getting a little bit frustrated or kind of questioning what the heck I was doing a little bit?
Much do you want me to say?
Well, you can say as much as you
I'm just
want.
kidding. It was long. Baseball was the worst. Basketball, things like that, like, it wasn't bad. Baseball was the worst because it was, like, every single night you were at home. But then also, some nights I enjoyed it. I would get something that I wanted to eat, didn't have to worry about him. I would sit on the couch and do nothing. Other times it was like, all right, well, I'm kind of scared, but like, what do I do? And then, of course, my brain just kind of goes off and thinks about all these what ifs too. So I mean there was good times, there was bad times. I mean the only part that was frustrating was like trying if there was something going on in the family or something like that, that then, I would just have to go by myself. At the end, we were moving, and then I had to basically like do it all because you weren't there because you had baseball. So just, it was the timing of everything, but it was fine.
Yeah, I think the coaching piece, anytime that for all of my high school coaches out there and college coaches and so on and so forth, like the coaching piece is so much fun when you're in the moment of it and you know the value and the relationships that you're building are definitely warranted and they're worthy of your time and your energy. But I think the difficult part is, you've heard a lot of coaches talk about that they've spent more time or sunk more time into the relationships of somebody else's kids instead of their own, different things along those lines. Now, at that time, we didn't have kids, and there were times where I was coaching. I might coach. In those early times, I was coaching soccer, and then I ended up coaching girls basketball and baseball also, especially when it was basketball, baseball, back to back. Like there was no breaks, and it got a little bit difficult even for me at different times. Not that I didn't value those relationships with the coaches and with the players because it was absolutely fantastic and it was definitely worth it. But I think at different times it does take a lot out of you, and in those moments, what you end up doing is you put other things your before your wife or before those main relationships, even with your relationship with God. I've joked many times that I love Jesus, I love my wife, and I love sports, and sometimes two and three get confused. But if I'd be really honest, like one, two, and three sometimes get confused in the fact of, sometimes that sports and coaching and different things like that clearly can take that number one spot, even two, instead of just that two spot. So I think at different times for different people, there really has to be. I've heard a lot of new talk from a lot of these newer coaches who are really putting a lot more value in the people instead of in the wins. And I think that is something that really Gay Academy, we did focus on both of those things. But I think too, like on the baseball staff and even on our basketball staff, like we did focus on our relationships with each other as a coaching staff,
Yeah.
but also on those kids too, and those things were very valuable to us and continued. Like Jenny have said, here we are 20, 15, 20 years past the mark of some of those things, and yet we're still getting messages and phone calls and text messages and just catching up with some old players during that time. And like I said, very humbling to still be in those players' in the midst of their families and what they're
Yeah.
doing. So definitely an important piece. So Jenny, we've been on here for about a half an hour, and we've talked a little bit about coaching. We've talked a little bit about us and about our move to Galpolis and to Fellowship of Faith. And in the midst of that Fellowship of Faith piece, with it being a church plant, one of the things that was kind of difficult, and we started to kind of go through a Fellowship of Faith, was we were in this moment where it was really weird, where the church was growing, but in the midst of that and that growth, you had a lot of new people coming in, but the consistency of those people were maybe in and out of the door a little bit. And maybe from a staff perspective, maybe grew a little bit too fast or hired me on a little bit too quickly or something along those lines, which happens in everyday life. And the church is prone to that too. And so in the midst of that, as we started to progress and 2010 was my first full year there at Fellowship of Faith and into 11. And then as we started to get into late into 2011, the church kind of came back and they were really struggling from a financial standpoint. And so let's take maybe about 15 minutes here or so and just kind of talk about from 2011, 2012, and into 2013. We went through some difficult times even as a couple, not from a marital standpoint necessarily. I mean, maybe from a marital standpoint, but from just a financial standpoint, and even from us. We've talked about the Sanders Circus, about how it's moved from one place to another, and in the midst of this, we end up finding out kind of around the same time that I was going to be moved from a full time salary, which was not very much at the time, from a full time salary to a part time salary. But also in the midst of that, we found out not too awful long later that the home that we were living in, um, that we were renting, that it was going to be sold. And so, because it was going to be sold, we were actually looking for a house. And so, in the midst of being part time, losing half of my salary from the church, and then having to move, we had to try to find a place to live. And won't you talk about maybe that place a little bit and just like how thankful we were in the moment, but also how difficult it was from moving from our house at Graham School to the new place?
I mean, just like everything else, you're just struggling and trying to make it, and then everything just keeps getting worse and worse. I feel like that's the story of our life. But also, the story of our life is that God always finds a way. It's always at the last minute for us, which is not easy at all. But, just we kept praying. And, if God had another place for us, we were supposed to move, go somewhere else, like, make a way. And basically, we always walk through the doors until they shut. So, we really at this point felt like we didn't want to go anywhere else, that we were going to stay in God Bliss, but we need to find a place. So, just constantly praying for a place to live, to rent, just something. We couldn't afford very much, but just praying, of course, for that to happen, for God to provide for us like He always does. It's just hard in the waiting. It's hard to keep your mind from worrying, from, trying to think of other ways to live or do, or what can I do more of? And you just don't have any of it. Like, I just felt like there was nothing else we could do. It was just like, all right, well, we need a place. And if not, then we'll figure it out. Like, all
Well,
right.
yeah, and we were definitely at the figure it out stage. I will tell you guys that we were kind of like Jenny said, that God shows up in the last moments, but honestly, He shows up in His timing. And so, as we were at the church, one of the couples um, that went to church there and were a big part of our lives knew we were struggling. And so they came to us and talked to us. And what they had was a small apartment that was actually in a barn. It was a pretty, nowadays, the barn dominium is a cool thing. But back then, it wasn't great. It was a one room apartment is what it was. Where basically your kitchen, a bathroom, a bedroom, TV room, like all those stuff was just in a pretty small room, probably about the size of maybe a bigger bedroom, I guess. Not super big, but in that moment, I think for us, it was devastating. It was very difficult. And the fact of the news that we were finding out is, we moved to Galpolis. We had this grand plan. Finally, we kind of, God helps us out maybe and saves the day in the fact of giving us an opportunity to join a team instead of trying to build one. And so we're very grateful for that and really learning a lot in the midst of that. But in the midst of that too, really having a difficult time what we were going to do from a financial standpoint and where we're going to live at. And so, in the moment, they were able to step in, give us this place to stay. We made the very best of it. I will tell you that we were there a lot longer than what we wanted to be. We had some very difficult times. In the part time at the church to no time, I picked up multiple jobs doing substitute teaching and working as an aide in the school system. And I'm trying to do multiple different jobs. I worked as a farmhand one summer, which, if you guys know me, I know absolutely nothing about that. But I worked one summer for as a farmhand, doing a lot of weed eating and cleaning and trimming trees and doing just whatever little odd jobs I could get my hands on to make a few extra dollars. And I've always been pretty willing to do that. It might not be the thing that I want to do, but when it's have to time, I feel like I've been able to jump in and to do some of those things. And so, in the midst of this, you have all of these fantastic things where we're building great relationships with kiddos
Right.
and families, and all of this, like, man, here we go. Man, we can't wait to see where this church goes, where it takes off to, and the things that they are doing. And then, in the midst of that, too, they Fellowship of Faith opened up a second campus in Jackson. And so, in the midst of all those things, we thought, oh my goodness, here we go. This is exactly where we want to be. We're so thankful to God. And then all of a sudden, within a 6 month time period, it was opened up a new campus. And then, honestly, I went part time, and two others went part time on the staff also. And then that part time went to no time for me. And I would tell you that we were very devastated. I was part time at the end of 2011, all of 2012, and all of 2013. And we were trying anything and everything. That's when I did take a couple extra coaching jobs because I thought that was that that coaching was something that I love, but also it did give us a little bit of money in the midst of that too. But at the end of the day, that money didn't equal the time and the energy that was being put into that. And so it was just a really, really rough time. Jenny spoke about kind of being by herself and different things. And so here we are, kind of on the top of this hillside here in this barn, in this small apartment and the barn's making all kinds of the creaking noises and all of those things and all the crazy
Yeah.
things. We saw too many critters up there, and I had to kill a snake up there, which is like, ugh. Definitely didn't want to do
Oh
any of
gosh,
those things.
Jamie.
And it was a nice big snake too, and it was pretty scary. Although everybody else just made fun of us when we kind of talked about that. But here we are in the midst of all of these highs of building great relationships, but also in the midst of this just tremendous lows of trying to figure out, like, man, how are we screwing this up? I know from my perspective, that's all I could think about was, man, I keep making these changes and these moves, and I think this is where we're supposed to go. And move to the left or move to the right. And instead, always doubting myself, second guessing myself is what I'm trying to get to, I guess, and doubting myself of, did I make the right move? Should we have stayed in Adams County a little bit
Yeah.
longer? Different things along those lines. And I think in the midst of those first couple years in Gallipolis, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of, like, man alive, is this really what we want to do and
Yeah.
how we want to do it? And so as we start to kind of close up here, episode 5, Jenny, during those moments, was there anything that you feel like that God was maybe even showing you of maybe that we made the right choice or we made the wrong choice, or kind of a tidbit of something that God was showing you during those moments?
I mean, in those moments, it's always trusting him and waiting on him. And I don't remember anything specific, but just reminding us that he is there and the people let us live in that barn and just, try to always appreciate what and be grateful for what we have instead of what we don't have. And so I think that's been like the running theme in our life is, we're extremely grateful for everything. There are hard times, just really hard times sometimes, but we just tend to I just pray for encouragement that God would keep give us an encouragement or see something here or there to remind us that he is there and that he will provide for us. Even though it may not feel like it in that moment, which it really felt like it in that moment, but just looking back on it and just seeing that he did have a plan for us.
Well, um speak to that enough. I think that every time I was even telling somebody today that when there is extreme chaos around us, honestly, that's when we know that God's working the most and that He's working in our lives. And I think that even in these moments in our lives, even right now, being here in Pickaway County and some of the things that that Jeni is going through and her health is going through and our family is going through, we know it's extremely chaotic and really crazy, but in the midst of this chaos, God has proven every single time that in the midst of this chaos, that He is the one that's going to calm us down and point us in the right direction. And it has been the circus ride. And as we close up on episode 5 here, if you guys have been on this ride with us. And even though we've taken about 2 weeks off here, please check out episode 5. If you want to catch up, you can catch up on episodes 1 through 4. Please share our story with maybe somebody that you think needs it. Maybe you're the one that needs it, but if you know a family member or something like that that's having a difficult time or their story sounds, the things that they're going through sounds a lot like our story, connect us. We are on social media, but of course, too, you can hit that subscribe button and that like button and share our story with the people around you too. So we are so very thankful to spend some quality time with you and talk a little bit about our transition to Galpolis and how those first few years were awesome and difficult all at the same time, which is the name of the game for the Sanders Circus. So make sure that you guys continue to hang out. We can't wait to introduce you to the rest of our chaos as we pick up in episode 6 the next time that you see us. I hope you have a great day. My name's Craig,
I'm Jenny.
and we're signing off. See you later.